Teaching can often become a very isolated job if we do not reach out to our colleagues. You see, what happens is we get into our classroom, we close the door, and we spend hours just us and the learners. Very few teachers take the time to get to know their colleagues and to build a bigger network. Thing is, we want to improve. You just don't want to stagnate in your job. So how do we do that? And of course, the Department of Education, or maybe the school, arranges for professional development opportunities, and we go and sit there for an hour or 2 hours, and in many cases we're bored out of our minds because the content isn't relevant and there's very little that we can take away. Now, the best professional development is still the teacher next door. But what does next door really mean in the 21st century? In the era of the internet, it's no longer necessary for us to just look at our own school and the competence of the teachers in our own school. Of course, it's important to have that camaraderie and get that culture of learning from the rest of our colleagues. But there is a big world out there, and there are so many international teachers that we can learn from. Now, I strongly believe that we should get teachers together in professional learning networks. And in today's episode, I speak to, I'm sure I'm going to butcher his surname, but it's Dr. Stephane Vermeulin. I hope I'm getting that right. It's spelled, for the Afrikaans viewers, it's spelled Vermeulin. So that's so much easier for me to say, but I'm sure I'm butchering his surname. But anyway, Dr. Stephane has spent time in education. He's taught more than 20 years, and he's been teaching all the way from preschool up to university level. He's taught on 4 different continents. And what this means is that he's built a network of international teachers. And I think this is something that we all should do and what we can get to learn from him. Apart from that, he has also created a platform that's called TeacherWit, that is an international networking opportunity for teachers from all over the world. And I enjoy the platform so much so that I signed up for it, but then they've also given me my own space there as a group leader, and I've created the Teach Like a Superhero group on TeacherWit. So for those of you that want to become part of that community, just check in the comments below or in the description of the video below. You'd be able to access that networking opportunity over there. It's totally free. If you want to, you can see it as social media, but just for teachers and teaching. And in our episode today, I speak to Dr. Stephane Vermeulin, and we discover how you can easily start creating this network of international teachers. Stay super. Dr. Stephane Vermeulin. Now, I'm butchering the surname there, but because this is South Africa, it's like a good, strong Afrikaans surname, Vermeulin, all the way from Vancouver in Canada. Welcome on Teach Like a Superhero. It's good to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, sorry I can't speak Afrikaans, but I know a few Zulu words, you know,
well,
from the time I lived in South Africa.
Yeah, you told me that you spent some time in South Africa. In which province did you stay?
I was in Durban for 2 years, yeah, and I've been maybe 8 or 9 times to South Africa in different places. So, yeah, I love this country.
So you're not a stranger to the country, and you understand our education system as well. And I'm very excited to speak to you about our topic. And as alluded into the introduction, is that it's so important for teachers to start building a professional network. Teachers, teachers can't survive if we do it on our own. It's extremely difficult if you tackle the teaching profession solo, or you close your classroom door and it's just you. It's very, very difficult to survive or to even thrive in those conditions. So it's great to have a chat to you around teacher networks and the importance of building a teacher network. Now, the first thing I want to ask you, and I might be putting you on the spot here, what's your opinion on the Facebook groups and the Instagram, the typical social media? Because I've seen a lot of teachers using social media quite effectively. But I wanted to know, like, what's your stance on the use of like Facebook groups or teachers using social media in general?
Well, actually, I think there's value in using social media, but it all depends, of course, on how you use it and where you go and what you do with it. And also you need to be fully aware that in those big groups, I mean, I'm part of some Facebook groups too, and sometimes you have 200,000, teachers in these groups. Not all of them though are teachers. In fact, you may have some robots, you may have some people from different businesses trying to sell, things to teachers as well. So it's a very, I mean, you need to understand how to navigate in those big groups, and it's sometimes challenging because you have so much content, so many posts, and people coming from all sort of mindset and backgrounds. And so sometimes it's fine and you can get some great resources and great ideas, but it's also challenging sometimes to interact with people who come with a different mindset, and maybe they're more aggressive, or maybe they are frustrated, and maybe they're here just to to complain and to have a place to to say that they are angry, and maybe that's the goal. It's fine, maybe, but what I'm just saying is that it's hard to find the content and go back to it. For example, sometimes I'm a bit lost in those groups because I find something interesting, and then the feed is so long that it's hard to to go back to it and say, oh, where did I find that interesting stuff again? So I think there's great value, but it's also a bit challenging and intimidating sometimes, and you need to really understand how it works and how do I communicate, in a platform like this with so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I share the stance with you. And I think there was like this, I almost want to say, a golden age for these kind of Facebook groups for teachers. I think like 2010 to about 2014, I think that was when it really thrived. And I could see a lot of positivity coming from these groups, because at the time it was uncharted territory. There were very little regulation around these kind of Facebook groups. And it was, in general, for me, it was quite a positive experience interacting with people on these groups. But as you say, they've just exploded. I know some of the biggest groups in our country has got 75,000 teachers on it. And if you think about it, in a country that's got about 350 to 400,000 teachers, having a group that's that big is quite a big sample size. But as you said, also, you don't know. Like, we know there are parents, we know there are service providers, they are on these groups. So it's becoming more and more difficult for me to find constructive content and constructive discussions on these kinds of forums.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think you're right. It's a question of maybe it's a generational thing as well. So you're right. Facebook was the place to go, was the place to be, like 10 years ago or something like that. And everybody was just happy to, and it was great. Yeah, it was exciting because that was the first time. Because before that, when you think about it, when I started teaching, yeah, I'm a dinosaur, but the only way you could access interesting PD, or you had a question, was to knock at the person next door, the teacher next door, and if you were lucky, the person next door was a great teacher, and then you could learn so much. But if you're not lucky, the teacher next door was maybe not that good, or maybe with a more conservative approach to teaching and learning, and then you were stuck in in your little world, in your silo. And then suddenly internet happened, Facebook groups, etc. So it was like, wow, okay, now I have access to so many interesting people. And that was wonderful. But then you're right, people realize, oh yeah, it's great, but I actually have access to maybe too much and too many people. And I'm now a bit overwhelmed, and I'm a bit lost in this nebulous digital world. So now I think we are in a new era, a different phase, and now people seem to more target who they want to be connected with, and and it's more purposeful, it's more intentional. It's not like joining a big thing, but it's more, oh, I'm gonna follow you because I know you have some some interesting things to share, and I'm gonna be part of that group because it's a smaller group, but it's very specialized and it's targeted to what I need and what I would like to learn more about.
I love what you're saying there. It basically says, or it alludes to, why TikTok has become such a good platform for individual teachers. I love the connotation that you made, that before the internet, you had to go to your neighbor, you had to knock on their door, or you had to be with the teachers in the staff room, and you could only draw from that select a group of teachers, because face it, we don't know everything. As a teacher, one of our things is we want to be a lifelong learner. We want to continuously improve. That's why being surrounded by more competent adults, more competent individuals helps me to learn the skills that I need. But now, as you say, as it scaled, as we moved on to Facebook groups, it just the value of it diminishes. But what you've mentioned there is the ability to select who you want to be connected with. And I think that's what the big Facebook groups, like the Facebook groups or any other social media group, really lacks, is almost that intimate kind of connection, an intimate relationship that you can build with an individual. And if you look at the TikTok teachers, that's exactly what's happening. It's that one individual showcasing their competence and then building a network of other teachers, because face it, their audience of majority teachers, maybe sometimes the kids and the parents, but because you see value in what they're showcasing on TikTok, you can start following them, but you've chosen it.
Exactly. I think it's a very different thing, but you know, it's one of those skills that you never really learn when you learn to be a teacher. You know, in your initial training, nobody tells you about that. Okay, building your PLN, being able to select the right platform that works for you, etc. I mean, those things should be taught, according to me, at the university level when you become a teacher, because that's totally part of the role of the teacher today. I mean, the educator today, they need to know those things, because that's the best way to get PD, anytime, and just in time PD. Like, for example, you don't always, sometimes you just need one thing, at that time. And that's the part, that's the greatest, that's the thing about the internet. You can have what you need just at the time you need it. And that's a skill. You need to understand how to search, how to build a network, because it takes time to build a network that is relevant, that is the right one. And it's it will take some mistakes, of course, like any learning and learning journey. But I think we need to be intentional in schools, and say explicitly, how to ask teachers to be explicit and intentional about building PLN.
And I agree with you. The fact that we are spending enough time at initial teacher education level on workplace readiness, because this is a component of it. We are so focused on the pedagogy, and rightfully so. I mean, the basis is know your content, know your methodology, know the pedagogy. It's super important. But there comes a time where we need to teach them the finer skills of the workplace. And in many cases, it's probably short-circuited to a one-day course on how to write your CV, how to prepare for interviews, what you should wear when you work at a school, those kind of things. But I haven't really seen a focus on how to build a professional network that you can benefit from.
Yeah, I was, lucky to be part of I was part of something called what's the name? It's linked to the Learning to conference, and they at the time there was someone called it's still around and it's still really, really good. Jeff Utecht. He's a consultant in digital, learning, and he's consulting with lots of different schools in the States and everywhere in the world. And they, with someone else called Kim Cofino, they both started something really cool that was a learning platform, and teachers could enroll for with a cohort of teachers, and they could learn about those things, how to build. And one, part of the task that was very simple, but it was, simply designed, but very purposeful. For example, they ask you to create a Twitter account or LinkedIn account. They ask you to, follow these, five people, for example, you want to follow that you think are inspiring, etc. So that was a great initiative. It's still around, but of course there's a cost, to it, and in some countries and in some places, maybe teachers, cannot afford doing those courses. So there are a couple of things around that I think it should be in the university, curriculum. It should be should be part of. They have to review the way they train teachers, because the job has changed so much. The role of the teacher is not the same at all. Even from like 20 years ago, it has evolved so much that I hope, I mean, I'm not part of any university, so I hope they have made those adjustments, and they understood the value of the PLN. I'm sure they do, but maybe not everywhere.
I agree with you. I think everybody would agree that having a professional learning network is important, but the skills of building one isn't necessarily formalized. It's not regularly taught, and the focus isn't really on that. So the challenge with having a Facebook group or joining one of these mega Facebook groups or one of those kind of networks is that the thing that you're looking for, as you said, like PD when you need it, is that it's so difficult to find the information that you need for the context that you need it in, because the Facebook platform just doesn't really allow for the creation of forums or creation of topics. And what you see on the feeds is what the moderators or the administrators of the group have already vetted. And so you actually do see filtered information coming through on a feed, and it's almost like you're just passively consuming. Oh, that's what somebody said. Oh, that's what the discussion topic of the day is, kind of thing. And the only time you really get value is when you post a question and other people saw the question and then they deem it necessary to answer your question.
That's true, and that's the only time you can really call it a community. Otherwise, it's a one-way channel of communication. But if you really want to call it a community, then you need more interactions. You need people to be able to post as well and control a little bit what the community looks like. And that's something that we wanted to do with TeacherWit. We wanted to have a place where it's easy to organize content and information, and people could go back to, and also a place where people could actually post, not just, a comment, but they could actually post an article, they could post a video, they could post, something like that, so they can contribute. So it becomes a real community, or not just, a place where you ask, you put a comment or you put a like, you say, oh, but really be able to bond, to create, to build relationships with people and value, and build value, collective wisdom in a way, like we are here for each other, we build capacity in one another, and I think that's what it should be about. But it takes time. It's difficult to build a community. It takes time, because you need trust as well. You need people to trust the platform, to trust the group, to trust the other members, and that doesn't happen in one day,
Which I think that's super valuable, in that many people think like, I'm just going to create an Instagram account and then I'll magically have 1,000 followers and all 1,000 of them are going to be engaging and we're going to be learning from each other. And that just simply doesn't happen. Like, this is very important to understand, that it's a career-long journey in building these networks. And the reason why I wanted to chat to you on the podcast is exactly for the fact that you've identified the need of having this global network of teachers, and you then created TeacherWit. So where did the platform come from, and why did you specifically decide that, okay, we're building TeacherWit?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, we always felt like, okay, this, having curriculum, having professional development is one thing, okay, but we need people to we need to give some power to the community and give some power to the teachers, to empower them to also, be self-advocates. So to say what they need and to find solutions for themselves as well. And I think it's very important to do that, because sometimes we feel like, oh, I know what you need. Okay, you need this article, you need this PD. But the reality is that in every country, in every school, you have people with different needs and different backgrounds, and then they don't need, they don't need the same content, the same topic, the same resources. And it's the same with kids. We say one size doesn't fit all, right? And that's the case for teachers too. You need to be able to have a place where they can feel safe to share, safe to to put some to share their own experience as well, because that's very valuable when they start sharing what works, but also what doesn't work. I think that's sometimes things we don't want to share, but there's a great value in sharing your failures as well, because you learn so much from that. I remember that one day I was at a PD, and someone called Ewan McIntosh, who is from Scotland, he was sharing the idea that you should have almost like your failure playlist. Do a playlist of your failures, but not just to say oh, I was so bad and etc., but to say, look, that could help someone else, and now what did you do to to fix that problem, or what did you do to what kind of solutions did you, or strategies did you put in place? So yeah, so our idea was to connect people together, but to find a way to make sure that they could actually really connect, and it would be multidimensional, not just one person controlling the group, but really a place where people could feel like they belong, and they have a voice, and that's the trust is a place where they can feel like people can speak freely, but yeah, with I would say a friendly environment, a constructive environment. So you can criticize, it's totally fine, but like anything, it has to be constructive. It has to be specific. It's not just for the sake of complaining, or you have to explain why, and maybe people can help you. And so that's the kind of spirit we want to have. And yeah, and so we started with in February with just about like 10 members, and and slowly we had more, and now we have people from almost 90 countries. So we're still growing, but we know it takes time, but we are happy because we have some really interesting people in the community. And that's the thing, the value of a community is not necessarily just the content, it's the people you have in the community. That's what makes value. It's not just having numbers. We don't have 1 million members, but the people we have, they're very interesting people. And that's, I think, to me, that's the best.
Absolutely. There's two reasons why I like this. And the first one is it's a closed society. It's a society of teachers, a community of teachers, where when you look at the other social media platforms, it's generic social media. It's you can have on your profile, you can have teacher related content, but you also have your personal content. And there's so many teachers that create separate profiles. This is my teacher profile, this is my personal profile, and never the two shall meet kind of thing, which I think is kind of sad, because we're holistic individuals. And I believe, like, from the get-go, I was like, I'm a teacher and I'm a human, so here's all my content kind of thing. But what I like about this is it almost creates a space where you can be vulnerable in a professional setting, because once you start posting on groups, and if the privacy settings aren't 100% right, the wrong people can see you being vulnerable on the social media sites. I know for a fact, it was probably in last week or the week before, there was a teacher who asked a question, and it's quite a sensitive question around legality, social media content kind of thing, teachers being recorded, those kind of things. And that was asked on a group, and a lot of teachers answered. But what happened is that one of their colleagues went and spoke to the child, spoke to the parents, and basically said, well, this is what that teacher said on that group. So it's just so much easier to leak these kind of information. And if you ever want to be vulnerable, and I think it's very important for us in a professional setting to be vulnerable, that it gets leaked into the wrong kind of system or the wrong kind of audience, where when you have a network, a digital network that's solely focused for teachers and people being vetted before they get onto a platform like that. That's the important thing. So that's what I wanted to ask you. I'll get back to the second reason why I like it, but what's the kind of vetting around accepting new members?
Well, the most important thing is the values. You know, we are very open in terms of where you are and what you teach, because I think there's value in diversity, and we need to have people who understand different perspectives and different, you know, different grade levels, age groups, etc. So we are very happy to have people from, you know, daycare, preschool, all the way to the university, because we are all educators, and learning, you know, doesn't have any age, right? So and same thing for the territory, the geography. We're very happy to have people from everywhere, because I think that's brilliant. But one thing that is extremely important is the values, and why you are here. You know, why what are you looking for? So one of the questions we ask people when they join is, what do they want to get out of this experience? You know, what's the purpose? Why do they want to join? Because that's extremely important, and the values are key in general in whatever you do in life, right? So we need to make sure that people are able to consider different perspectives, and not in a judgmental way. So yeah, you don't agree, it's totally okay if you don't agree, but you know, be respectful of the others. I mean, all those simple things, we pay a lot of attention to that, because we don't want to have a platform that becomes like, you know, a place where people can just argue about every single thing and be very nasty, and it becomes, you know, it happens a lot on other social media, and that's a mistake we don't want to have here. So we try to make sure that they understand that, yes, you can be, you know, you can have different opinions. It's totally okay, but you need to explain why, and you need to, you know, ask questions and etc. It's not a place to fight. It's a place to understand, you know, the issues and find solutions together, imagine solutions together. Nobody is right or wrong. It's just about sharing and try to understand, you know, those issues together. So yeah, it's the most important focus for us, to make sure people understand that when they join a community where people are here to be together. Doesn't mean they're all the same, but they're here to have this mindset and try to construct something together, to construct knowledge, to understand, you know, dig some important questions about education, etc., in a respectful way.
And that leads me to the second thing that I admire about this platform, and that I think shows me the value of it, is the connection between people from different countries. It's, well, in my experience, I've seen that the local groups tend to click together because there's a unique context and you can find solutions to your problems. And I think that's good also. But getting an international perspective is super important for your professional development. Because what I do is I run a mastermind of teachers. So we've got every second Wednesday, I've got a group of teachers from all over the world that meets online on Zoom, and we get to discuss the issues that you have in your classroom. So I've got teachers from United Arab Emirates explaining the challenges that they live in. And what happens then is it gives the South African teachers in the group some perspective, and saying that, you know what, we've got this imaginary idea of what classrooms are like over there. Maybe we think that grass is always greener, and then we realize, wow, my classroom and their classroom, we're struggling with the same challenges. So just merely for a perspective on international challenges in education and how we solve those challenges, finding people from all over the world and adding them to your network is so important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. You know, and I lived in, as I said, I lived in South Africa, but I also worked in China and in Luxembourg, in France, in Canada now. So I really, that's something I think is extremely important, because sometimes when you stay within your little circle, people tend to stick with the same recipes, you know, because that's what you hear, that's what people do. So it's hard to be innovative if you stick with the same group of people all the time. So that's why I think it's so nice when I'm always amazed and so happy when someone tells me, hey, have you considered doing this instead? You know, and I'm like, oh no, I've never thought about that before. Okay, let's give it a try. That's the best, because then suddenly your world shifts and your whole, you know, conception of something is disturbed and is transformed, and then it's that's exactly what I'm hoping will take place on TeacherWit, because yeah, sometimes you just never considered one solution, or you never considered a change that is the norm in another place, or maybe it's okay to try this in, you know, in another context, and sometimes it's not okay for cultural reasons or for logistical regions, or you don't have the right equipment or something like that. But so it's just refreshing, you know, and sometimes maybe it's not appropriate and you say, oh, okay, well, you know, in our case, it doesn't work, but that's fine. It's good to know that it's happening in another place. And education is changing so much. So that's also very, very important to understand, because there are lots of innovative stuff going on in at the micro level, you know, in one school here, in one school there. So if you can have an opportunity to, you know, connect with these schools and these educators who are trying things, then yeah, it just makes ripple effects, and hopefully, you know, everybody will benefit from it. Because that's the thing, we don't want to, you know, good practices, or, you know, be limited to a certain small circle of people who are part of international schools, or part of, you know, certain networks that are very, very close sometimes. So I think it's important to make sure that people share outside of their first inner circles those great stuff. And that's, yeah, so that breaking those circles is important sometimes, you know. Of course, you always make other circles, right? But I think the goal of TeacherWit is to make sure that we have people from different small circles from all around the world, so that we are like a transferable network, if you want. I don't know if it's the right term, but you see what I mean.
But that's exactly the reason why I've joined the platform after the two of us had the opportunity to meet. Probably, I think it's a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. You introduced the platform to me. I'm like, cool, I'm going to give this a go. And what I've done is I've moved my mastermind, the group of teachers that meet twice a week, I've moved that onto the TeacherWit platform to start building that network of super teachers. I must say, I've been enjoying the use of the platform. Specifically, one of the features that I'd love to start using a bit more is the creation of events. And I don't think that's something that's easily done on the other social media platforms, is that you create the event for your teachers to attend online. And I'll definitely be exploring more about that. But so for the rest of the teachers that are listening or watching this podcast, if you'd like to try out TeacherWit and come join my group of super teachers, what I'll do is in the comments or the description of this YouTube video, I'm going to put in my unique link so that you can come and join my group. And then while you're there, start creating your profile and interacting with the other international teachers. But if you don't like my face, then I'm wondering, why are you still there? And you just want to check out TeacherWit on your own, Stéphane, how do teachers go into TeacherWit if they don't want to go there through my group?
It's super easy. They just Google TeacherWit, and then, you know, the sign up is free, entirely free. It takes 2 minutes, and then you're part of the open community. And then we have some groups, and I'm so happy that you are one of them, because I think it's super that to have you on TeacherWit now. I love it, and I think that's the great thing about it, is that we can have then, you know, groups led by someone, you know, who is inspiring. And that's also what we're trying to do with you, and hopefully maybe with other people later on, to have, you know, some inspiring people to lead some groups. So the good thing is that everybody's part of the open free community, no matter what, you know, by default, you have access to the whole community. And then, but I highly recommend to join your group, because, you know, that would be a bit silly to join the community and not be part of your group. But yes, the live events. I mean, that's something that I'm looking forward, to your first live event on TeacherWit, because that's going to be great.
We'll get that going. There's some interesting news on my side which I can't reveal yet, but just like a little spoiler for people just to like watch my socials for a big announcement coming soon. But with that setting aside, you also spoke about hosting conferences, like in-person live conferences and also online conferences. What's that looking like at the moment?
Yeah, we we are a startup, so we are trying things, right? And that's the way we work. So we thought, okay, you know what? Let's give it a try. So in August, we decided to organize a online conference, and we had about 12 panelists. One of them being Yong Zhao, who is a very famous professor and author. So he was, he kindly offered to be our guest speaker for the conference, which was great. And so we did everything online. It was like a separate group on TeacherWit called Drive Conference. Everything was done virtually. People could sign up for different sessions, and all the sessions are, the thing as well is that each time we do something online, like a live event, conference, or just a little chat, everything is recorded and put on TeacherWit, because we feel, because it's a challenge when you have people from everywhere in the world to do something live, right? Because of the time zones, time difference, you can never have everybody in the same virtual room. It's impossible. So, and we think it's great for teachers. They really love, to have the possibility to go back to the event afterwards and watch it and pause and take notes if they want to take notes, or explore the links or the references that we mentioned during the chat, etc. So I think that's the same for you. Having live events is great because people are together and they can ask questions live, etc. So it's very exciting. I think it's great as well to have the possibility to record and build like a bank of very unique resources.
Excellent, and I'm looking forward to the next conference that you guys will be hosting. I'll definitely be in attendance, so I'm looking forward to that.
You'll be presenting. Come on.
I'll definitely we'll do the teach like a superhero talk and present that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun and present a lot of value to the audience. So Stéphane, from my side, thank you for adding to the network of teachers and adding a platform like this. I think it's super valuable, very important that we get teachers onto this platform. I can already envisage a global community of teachers, and may your platform just go from strength to strength. And I'd like to, even though you're not necessarily in the classroom as much as the rest of the teachers, you are providing a platform, you are providing a tool for other super teachers to use. So thank you very much for doing that.
Well, thanks to you, because it's awesome to have people like you on TeacherWit, and I think you're adding a lot of value to the community. So yeah, thank you so much for being part of us.
It's an absolute pleasure. I was say it's absolute pressure. It's an absolute pleasure.
No pressure.
No pressure at all, and to help assist in building this professional community of teachers. Because the one thing that I believe strongly is that even though teachers are superheroes, you can't be a superhero on your own. You have to go find your Avengers, and where better to find your Avengers than on a digital platform like TeacherWit.
I totally agree. We all need teams, and not just one team. We need multiple teams. Yeah.
Exactly. Stéphane, thank you for spending time with us. For the rest of you, stay super.